Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Waxcast podcast. I am your host, Gavin Wax, and this is episode 15, a special episode for the show. It's our first episode with a recurring guest. As you may have remembered, our first inaugural episode was with the infamous Vish, Burra, who is the vice president of the New York Young Republican Club and formerly the producer on America's most popular podcast, The War Room Pandemic podcast, hosted by Steve Bannon and Raheem Kassam. I want to welcome back to the Waxcast my good friend Vish. Vish, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Gavin. And listen, it's after hours. I'm home on Staten Island. You might see me smoking on something or drinking something that's clearly not water. So you're just going to have to work with me here.
We're going to roll with it. We had some technical issues earlier, but they've all been sorted. It seems like the Chinese were trying to shut down the Waxcast because we're speaking truth to power here. But we haven't even got into it really. So let's just hit the ground running with some of the latest topics of the news cycle. Obviously, we've seen what's been going on with this COVID quote-unquote relief bill, one of the worst pieces of legislation ever put out of Congress. I never thought I'd ever be talking about Pakistani gender therapy sessions or whatever the hell they're funding. I know as a Pajit yourself, you're probably very upset that they weren't funding Indian gender studies. It was over on the other border.
India doesn't even get that much money. I don't get it. What's the problem? Well, we're not good enough to Greece too? I don't get it.
It is. It's such an insult to the great people of India that we're funding the genderqueer studies in what is it, Karachi, Islamabad, but not in New Delhi.
That's what they really want is gender studies in Karachi.
Right. I mean, the priorities are set, but, I have to say the president's speech was phenomenal. I love the camera angles, very dramatic, jumping between shots as he calls out every bit of bloat in this worthless piece of legislation and says that he will not sign it unless he has a $2,000 per American relief package. What do you think about this? What do you think about these dollar bills?
First of all, let me tell the American people right now that if you got Joe Biden, he would have signed that $600 right away, sent all that money all overseas, and everyone would have gotten $600. Trump would have signed his name to $1,200 earlier. Already, you've downgraded in the presidency just on that move. But we have Donald Trump now taking the reins on this, obviously seeing the stupid bloat all throughout this bill. I mean, this is a prime example of the Washington foreign policy grift machine, basically, sinking its hooks into the political crisis that we have going on and this economic crisis that we have going on, which has led to a larger macro societal crisis. So this is a quintessential example of that grift game, and the GOP, which has coddled the idea of exporting liberalism, exporting democracy, that we can, go and build multiple Americas, in
Pakistan
and all these places with sand, blood, and oil, So there's a quintessential example right there. Donald Trump, obviously being the outsider that he was hired to be from the very beginning, jumping on that and saying, look, if we're going to have to if we have to make the the printing machine go burr, we're going to make it go burr for the people, right? Print out $2,000. It's Christmas time. It's cold out. People got extra gas bills to pay and all sorts of stuff. So let's make sure if we're going to become the United States of the Federal Reserve, we might as well do it printing money for the people. So
it's cold outside. Were you about to go? It's cold outside, because that's a sexist song, Vish. You can't bring that. You can't bring that. It's cold outside.
It's cold outside, and I enjoy that song, and I enjoy everything it's about to.
Good. Well, 5,000 pages. This nonsense piece of legislation is larger than some of the greatest novels, and I think it was longer than War and Peace. Whatever the hell they were putting it out there. It's so insane. They had 4 hours to read it, and then some of the stuff in here. I mean, we talked about the gender studies, and some of the stuff, the foreign aid to these countries. They were recognizing the Belarusian elections as being fraudulent, and it was so ironic that they were criticizing the elections in Belarus, saying, "Oh, they didn't have observers. They used mail-in ballots. There was evidence of tampering with the machines." It's like, oh, there you go. Our country, our hypocritical government out of DC, criticizing the same practices that they engage in domestically abroad. And it's only bad if another country does it that's not aligned with our, our deep state beltway foreign policy agenda. But if it happens
so
here at home, it's okay.
It's not deep state though. They're in your face. They're
Yeah,
writing it.
that's
They're
true.
putting on the bill.
That's
They're
true.
putting on the bill. And they're telling you what it is, right?
Yep.
There's nothing deep about it, right? They're in your face telling you that
they're laughing. They're laughing. They're laughing right at us.
They literally think they know that it's messed up. They know you're not going to do anything about it, right?
Yep.
They know you can't do anything about it, so they're just going to do it.
They're just going to do it.
Donald
and
Trump, with the only power to stop it with the veto, actually is able to stop it for a moment, right? And if the Democrats get away with the steal come January 6th, when the Congress has to certify all the electoral votes from the various states, then this is what you're going to get. You're just going to get more of it. It's going to be in your face. That's what these guys. That's what people don't get. That it's just that they don't care. They are so brazen, and they think so little of you that they're just going to do it, and they're know they're going to get it.
Beating us down until we punch back, until we beat them, until we primary them, until they're out of office, or until we take to the streets. Because they, like you said, they don't give a damn. They're laughing. They think they're smarter. They think they'll get away with it. They think they think everyone's stupid. And granted, they're not necessarily off. There is a lot of stupid people in this country who just go along with this nonsense and don't even have any questions for any of it. But what are we going to do? I mean, if Trump's gone, who's, like you said, Biden would have signed this in a heartbeat, and probably would have been an even worse bill if they knew Biden was president, because they probably would have stuffed it with even more crap. And this is both parties. Don't get me wrong. This is both parties. I mean, what was it, 7 or 8? Like Republican senators.
McConnell's already made his deal with Biden, right? Like,
completely.
He's ready. Yeah, he just wants his judges, right?
Yep.
So in the incoming administration, it says, okay, you want money for this, money for that, I'll give it to you. Just make sure you get these guys in line, Chucky and these guys in line when I need my judges approved. Right?
What good are these judges? And what good are these stupid judges when none of them have the balls to take on cases that matter, cases of real importance in our constitutional and electoral integrity? Where are they? They're the same judges that are voting to redefine gender. They're the same judges that are voting against every conservative principle they stand for. They're just as bad as every congressional rep who betrays the base. I mean, who cares about the judges? The judicial strategy has failed in this country. It's been a complete loser.
So you heard about this outburst supposedly that a judicial staffer had heard while the justices were discussing the Texas lawsuit, and that supposedly Roberts had said that we didn't have what was it, Bush v. Gore didn't have riots, and so I'm making my decision now, and this court is going to make its decision based on the societal context of what's happening right now, not based on what is right or wrong as per the Constitution, as per what the Constitution says is their job. So once we've crossed that Rubicon, even our SCOTUS is compromised, right? Once the Chief Justice is making those decisions on this sort of like living document basis, you can't even rely on your SCOTUS. If this goes through, we will fully be a banana republic. Right? Oh, yeah. Like it's no doubt about it. You have to, and it's just like trust, right? Trust takes very long to build up. You lose it in seconds, and the integrity of our republic is also the same thing. And so I don't think people understand how much work we're going to have to do to build back the integrity of our republic if this were to come to pass.
Yeah, I mean, we're really at a precipice in our nation, and there's just been zero leadership and zero real courage to fight back and to push back. It's the same business as always, just go along, get along. And the Republican Party is broken. They've shown their true colors. The second the chips were down, they threw the president to the wolves. They threw his base to the wolves, the same base that they grifted off of, like you talked about. They grift off the base for votes. They grift off the base for their stupid fundraising text messages. And the second we actually need them to put up a fight, they're nowhere to be found. And I cannot wait to see who actually votes, or who actually challenges the electoral college delegations on the 6th in Congress. I want to see
that's got to be on record.
Yeah.
That's got to be on record, right? So
Yeah.
top down, right, from all the way from the Senate down to the state legislatures, everybody's on record, right, of who voted to certify what, who voted to let this come to pass. Once those names are on record, and it's time for candidacies to be declared, those people got to be primary. It's that
Every
simple,
single one of
right?
them.
Every single one of them has to be primary.
Because
It's
we've
and
always just thought of this as R versus D, but really we have a fight inside the Republican Party because we could have a majority. We had a majority for 2 years. It didn't
yeah.
matter because most of them were spineless, most of them were weak, most of them were not on with the agenda, with the America First agenda. They're all just trying to go on with their establishment, old school type of politicking where everyone gets a cut, nothing gets done, and it's just go along to get along, and that's just not going to cut anymore. We have real issues facing this country. Our country is in a managed decline. It's collapsing around us.
They're
And we need to
managing the
really,
decline, right?
they
Like
are.
that.
They're behind it.
They're that's the driving ideology, right? Like
Yep.
they've already accepted America's on its way down. Like now we're just gonna let it down slowly, and we're gonna make money on it while it's on its way down.
Right.
And so
And look
we
out for
need
themselves, their
we,
families,
we
their interests.
right. We need people who are by their attitude are not running on this theory that America's on its way down. America still has many thousands of prosperous years to come, in my opinion, because of the
Thousand.
system that we have. Thousands, right?
Thousands.
Millennia, right?
Yeah.
So I believe America has a great prosperous future for millennia. We just need to make it come, let it come to be right now. It's just kind of sickening that we don't have people ready to stand up to make sure that we're there to see those years. Instead, we have people indulging in managed decline, just kind of buying into the nihilism that's been sort of pervading our society and our culture, our zeitgeist since post World War II.
Yeah,
Right.
post World War II, there's been political cowardice, not willing to fight, and that cowardice has just run deep through our nation, deep through our institutions, and it's more than cowardice. It's honestly just blatant corruption. And if they're not cowards, they're on the dole, and they're getting a cut, and they're getting something out of this because they're complicit. And everything that's going on, these policies that are being pushed through, the agendas that they're trying to initiate are all designed to put American workers, American families, American businesses dead last and prop up almost everyone else except their core constituencies. And this is going to continue until seriously people start to wake up, get out of this this matrix that they're living in, where the Republicans or Trump or whoever are these evil bad guys that want to just basically just to take away whatever they think they're going to take away. I can't even frame how a liberal can view this political dynamic without just sounding stupid, because I just don't understand how they can look at the current political dichotomy and come away with it saying, oh yeah, Trump's the bad guy in this situation. Like I can't even put myself in their shoes anymore because it's just so stupid.
Well, I think I do think that ultimately the country's on our side. Sans
silent majority type of stuff.
Yeah. I think sans the Trump fraud, basically on election night. The rest of the returns, I mean, we really did crush the Dems. See, we can look at everything that's negative and terrible about what's happened so far, right? But let's take a moment and look at the positives and assess how we move forward from here, right? We're going into 2021 off year. Really, it's about local elections this year. Some to watch for. I think Virginia might have their elections. There's a bunch of off-year elections. New York, right? And so New York
mayoral, gubernatorial, we got everything.
The gubernatorial next year. But yeah, right. But these next 2 years, these are off years. Lots of local elections. And this is where actually we need to see how we can move forward, and really really add on to the gains that we've already made. Right. So let's what I'm thinking is that the Democrats will overreach. They will sort of actually buy into the fraud that they committed. They'll actually be like, no, the people are with Biden, and so that means all this crazy stuff we propose is what the people really want. I think that's going to ultimately backfire, and I think that's going to lead to a tactical advantage for us to sort of just add on to just how crazy they are. Right, 2020 was about defund the police and sort of, the basically like anti-safety movement, and just this crazy sort of anti-police movement that's brewed that killed the Democrats, even just according to Joe Biden, right? Joe
Right.
Biden, so if
And
that killed,
Obama came out and he said it.
yeah,
He said, I mean, he wasn't philosophically against it. He never went that far. He just said that this is bad optics.
Basically what he's saying is a bad marketing strategy, right?
Exactly.
So,
He wasn't
yeah,
commenting on the policy, but that's what the Democrats are. That
right.
the moderate Dems are the ones who are just saying it's bad optics, not saying it's actually bad policy. That's what's so pathetic about it. But I'm going to be the devil advocate here and push back on you a bit, because I agree everything with what you're saying. In normal times, normal circumstances, he's going to push it too far. He won on a fluke maybe, and there's going to be repercussions down ballot. There's going to be a bloodbath in the parties, both parties, and there's going to be some changes with many of these seats. But the caveat is, and other people are mainly saying this, I'm not saying I agree with this, but I'm just putting it out there, that normal calculus is out the door now, because they managed to figure out how to really rig this kind of election. They managed to steal it, however you want to describe how they did it, whatever method, whatever you want to do. There was definitely some shady business that went on. They knew how to do it at such a scale for the presidential. They're going to replicate it for whatever race they need to win, to get the numbers they need, to preserve the system, to push through the status quo, to preserve the status quo, and to push through any new elements of their regressive agenda. So, we can strategize, we can talk about, I'm all for, again, I'm just being devil advocate. I'm not saying I agree with this, but some people are basically throwing in the towel, giving up the fight. What do you say to that?
So look, I totally understand, right? It's like, if we allow this fraud to happen, what other fraud can we actually prevent, right? This is ultimately the question, and if we can't stop it on the presidential level, what are we going to stop it for a dinky seat,
Right.
somewhere in no name Idaho or something like that? Not to say anything bad about the state of Idaho. I'm just saying, if you're sort of thinking about this, from this macro perspective, what I'm trying to say is that, yes, that there is a problem in that degree, but they've also overreached in the sense that they had to pull off a very obvious and blatant fraud that most of the country now can see. And so now the entire country, I believe, is going to engage in prioritizing election integrity as a top issue. And you're going to see a lot of donor money. I believe that if the donors are smart, that a lot of donor money is going to flow into initiatives that are, voter ID, basically organizing talent to be in the counting rooms. Now, the counting room is a part of the.
It's sexy now.
Yeah, exactly. It's part of the official way to win, right? And
Yeah.
so now you need to put soldiers in the counting rooms, right? And so all these organizations.
That's what we need. That's what we need. Not white papers. We don't need white papers. We don't need more think tanks. We need bodies on the ground. We need people funding this infrastructure, this grassroots stuff. We need people who are willing to, we got to pay people to sacrifice a day of their lives to sit in some stupid counting room and be a pest all day and to take photos and to take pictures. We need to
be
hire
good at being a pest,
army.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we need, right? And so if the donors aren't serious about this, then the GOP is toast, right? Well, and at this point, especially if you let the fraud slide, right?
Yeah, there is no more reason that anyone can drag their feet on voter ID or any of these other laws. But the sad thing is that many of these states, like Wisconsin, I know, and a few others, they had state level like voter ID laws. They had state level protections that were actually very good. The problem is COVID gave them all carte blanche to just write all this stuff up. And that just goes back to where the hell were we the past year when they were changing the electoral laws? What the hell was our team doing? Where was the legal team?
Yeah,
Why were we fighting it? Why were we fighting the battle from 6 months ago?
Right, but still in the counting room is where we needed to nullify it, right? Like while the fraud is being committed, stop them from counting the ballot, to threaten to file an injunction, go full hammer on that one vote, and if you have to do it again for the next one, do it again for the next one, right? You need people who are persistent in there, who know the rules, stopping it while it happens. We weren't prepared because we didn't know how many angles they were going to come at us. It was brilliant, right? They basically stole it in every way possible.
Well,
right?
Biden said it himself. What did he say? He said we have the most extensive voter fraud in the. I mean, that was, he basically was saying what actually happened.
Slip.
It was the biggest Freudian slip. It's going to go down in history. I don't care what they say. They're going to write history books about this election. They're going to write history books that mention that specific moment where he had his cognitive decline showed, and he admitted the truth, which was that there was tons of fraud, and it was very organized. It was centralized, and this was planned for a while. Why else wouldn't he have been campaigning? He sat in his basement the whole time. He knew he didn't have to. But I mean, we could talk about this for hours and hours. But I mean, what do you think about this betrayal? We mentioned it kind of briefly, Ariel, from earlier, from people like Mitch and the rest of the GOP establishment. I mean, are they done? Are they actually going to face real repercussions in the years to come, or are they just going to continue to ride this till they die?
I doubt Mitch McConnell and really the guys like, up top, Lindsey Graham. I doubt any of these guys are going to face any real repercussions. These guys are likely to retire in their seats. All we can really hope is that we can try to build bridges with the guys who replace them, and hopefully they're better than McConnell.
Seems like Tulsi Gabbard is better than them. I mean, I'm watching Tulsi lately. She seems like she has way bigger balls than most of the Republicans, and she seems to be saying all the right things. And I'll give credit to AOC. AOC came out today and said, "How the hell was I supposed to read this bill in 5 hours?" I mean, I'm willing to give credit where credit is due. And
here's my problem with AOC though. Look, she came out with that article, or she did the interview the other day, saying Schumer and Pelosi need to go as leadership,
and then she voted for them. She voted for Pelosi,
right? But her basically what she said was, "But we can't let them go as leadership, because if we do, then there are other nefarious forces that will fill in the space of that leadership." And then the guy, I think the interviewer was like, "All right, so are you gonna be? Why don't you be speaker?" And she's like, "No, I'm not ready yet." Right? So like,
coward.
Yeah,
it's like the Bernie Sanders. Right. It's like the Bernie. She's like controlled opposition. It's like Bernie Sanders, where he always just gets bought off with a private jet or a private lake house. It's always the same thing with them. They have, in the Democrat camp, they control their opposition. They dominate things well. And that's why they march in lockstep. The Republicans are always divided, and the Republican establishment just screws us over time and time again and gets whatever they want. And the Dems, at least, the Dems, they have this kind of weird balance where they'll make tons of ideological concessions to the left, but they'll still maintain, the Steny Hoyers and the Pelosi's and the Schumers in control. I mean, they seem to have found a perfect balance. I don't know, maybe not.
No, I don't think it's a perfect balance. I think what you actually see in the Democratic Party is the people who are in charge of the party 10, 15 years ago are still the same people in charge now. But what you see is their middle has been hollowed out, and it's just a really young, eclectic vocal minority that's super to the left, and then the super old establishment party that's been there for a while running.
It doesn't even believe in anything. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that neoliberal.
Malleable.
Right, and so. But nothing in the middle, no bridge connecting these two. That whole section has sort of been, I believe, basically been hollowed out by the GOP, right? And so
there's no blue dogs. The blue dogs are gone. I mean, the biggest blue dog they had was a Max Rose, and he was barely a real blue dog. So it's like they have no moderate base. I mean, there are no moderates anymore. I mean, the moderates are in the GOP. They're the rhinos.
Right, and then like your blue dogs. All gone to us, right? So, the GOP actually. See, that's what I'm saying. The GOP has a bright future, right? Like, okay, the next 4 years with Biden possibly is going to suck, right?
Right.
But for the next 10 years for the GOP, it's actually not that bad. We control majority of the state legislatures.
We gained. We picked up two.
We picked up two. Guess what? This is 2020. That means though they're all in control of the redistricting now,
Yep.
right?
That was Obama's plan. We thwarted it.
We thwarted that. We actually got the beats on Obama and Attorney General former AG Holder. So in this instance, we actually have a pretty on a 10-year plan. We're actually looking good. The problem is, how do we get the integrity of the elections back? I was just talking to a guy today at Freddie's Freddie Salomaria in Eltingville over here. I was hanging out with Fog City Midge. We're eating pepperoni rolls and the prosciutto rice balls. Or no, prosciutto balls. That's what they were, not rice balls. They said you can either have rice balls or prosciutto balls, but not both.
They both sound amazing. I got no complaint.
Yeah. This guy, he was a total Trump guy, and he's like, oh, but you see, he says to us, you see what they did though, right? They took it from him. They're always going to take it, just like that when they don't like somebody who tells the truth, and that's why I'm never voting again, right? Yeah. And so that's what we can't afford. Right. And so that is
demoralization.
Right. And so that's what we can't afford. That's what we need to address.
They want us depressed. They want us to give up. They want us to throw our hands up and just surrender everything. I mean, they want us to do that for the Senate runoffs. They want us to do it for other elections. And look, I'm the first person to say there are a lot of Republicans who are utter trash, who don't know what they're doing, who generally pretty much suck, but they're always going to be better than the Dems. And politics, it's about winning on the margins. You're not going to get everything you want to make, gains here and there. You're going to be able to protect things here and there. Why give them everything? Why let them destroy everything when you can at least, win fights on the margins, even if you have to put up with an establishment Republican? I mean, and I say that as someone who hates them, who hates the establishment wing, but we can't be demoralized. I mean, because, this was probably a landslide in many ways for Trump. And we saw it down ballot. We just talked about the legislative chambers at the state level. I mean, we held them all. We flipped two. House, we didn't lose a single seat in the House. We probably won even more seats than were recorded currently. And the Senate, the Senate is what it is, because that's kind of tied to the president very closely. But, it is a shame that it's coming down to Georgia. But look, the map is changing. Even if we take these results as accurate, he won based on this flimsy coalition that only exists because of COVID. You take COVID out of the equation, that coalition that got Biden in, that coalition that helped the Dems down ballot, it's gone. It's gone. Right. And if we can just maintain the gains and not shoot ourselves in the foot and find some real leadership, then we'll be good. And the other thing, I wish Trump was more, he's a killer, but I wish he was more of a killer. I wish he really cleaned house. I wish he sacked a ton of these
the laziest fascist ever.
Yeah. He should have purged them all. He should have purged the whole RNC. He should have purged his whole White House. I mean, he had so many Brutuses all around him, waiting to stab him in the back, waiting to throw him to the wolves, waiting to run to the press and leak. I mean, no one there was ideologically committed. No one there was loyal to him. And they played him, and they put on the right face, and they kissed his ass when they needed to. But behind the scenes, they were working to sabotage his agenda. And that's been the first 4 years. And he still did amazing things for a president in one term. He maybe two in one term, despite of it all. But it could have been so much better if we had the right staffing, if we had the right personnel, if we had the right people in charge that were committed. We didn't. That's the biggest issue that we've seen.
I want this to be a huge takeaway from the entire Trump presidency. If there's a lesson learned in what could have been done better for the entire movement out there, personnel is policy, right? And so it's so important. The human capital that you cultivate, you maintain, is the key to whether you're successful or not in establishing your agenda. Trump didn't have the MAGA apparatus because there was no MAGA apparatus, right? It was just him, and then he had to work with what was available, which was a giant pool of neocons, right? And so and a giant pool of just Washington grifters.
What do you think of
So
AG Barr? What do you think of AG Barr? What camp do you put him in?
okay,
Because I see two camps on
okay.
Twitter. I see people that I know and respect. They defend him. They're always supporting him. They're saying Barr's a good guy. He's on our side. Then I see another camp that can't stand the guy. I'm mixed on him. I'm generally leaning towards I think he kind of failed. What do you think?
Okay, this is Attorney General. This is the way DC works. Okay, um, Attorney General. If a couple of parameters were changed before the appointment of the special counsel after James Comey was fired, there is a very real alternate reality that was just a few decisions away, where the special counsel that would have been appointed to investigate Donald Trump on the Russia hoax would have been AG Barr, and the actual AG that would have been in that seat today, who would have eventually resigned, would have been Mueller. Because there's only 4 or 5 guys that can fill the role in DC. Right. You only can. Right. The bench sucks. It's the human capital. Personnel is policy. This is the point, right? If you succumb to what's actually available, right? And so there's only like 4 or 5 guys who can be AG on the Republican side of the football, or even be a special counsel or be a high level lawyer / political guy. And so what I'm trying to say is what you're seeing would have happened regardless, no matter who was in that place, just because of the talent pool that we're drawing from.
That's an interesting point. You don't hear that a lot. I mean, it's kind of depressing, but it's true. I mean, Mueller was a Republican. He probably was in the same circle. He was in the same circles as AG Barr. AG Barr was very much, a DC kind of establishment guy. He worked under Bush. That's why when he was first appointed, I wasn't too, impressed with his background. I felt like he was kind of a swamp creature. He seemed to have been a lot better coming into it.
He is a swamp creature. They're all swamp creatures.
He is. I mean, I was
right. If you once you're there for like 10, 15, 20 years,
you're done. You're a swamp creature.
And
you're never going to go against the grain. You're never going to go against the grain. You want to go to the party. You want to go to the cocktail circuits. Yeah, you want your friends. You want your accolades. You want all your positions and your titles and everything. And you want your nice, cozy life, regardless of what happens in the administration. So that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with people who put themselves, before country, and they're not willing to sacrifice anything. And it's a shame. And look, when he first came in, I thought he maybe have been a little better on some areas than Sessions. I mean, Sessions did some things good, some things bad. Altogether, we've just had mediocre candidates for these positions. Sometimes they were good, sometimes they were bad. There was never any,
you remember Secretary of State started with Mitt Romney. Think about that for a second.
They wanted to pick Mitt Romney.
Right, as like a olive branch or whatever,
olive branch,
whatever stupidity the DC group think.
Olive branch. I mean, come on,
is the ritual to make this. You know what I mean?
He has no political capital, no political weight, no natural constituency. I mean, he's basically Chris Christie. No one actually likes him. He's just a relic who's just in his position by virtue of the powers that be and just being a relic. I mean,
who's going to go to Utah and primary him?
Exactly. He has the Mormon vote. I mean, who cares? I mean, they're trying to make all these deals.
That's a seat. That's our seat. That's a safe seat. That's the kind of
that should be a seat we have a hardcore Trumpian in. All these states, we have Alaska, we have Utah, we have all these states, even states like Idaho or Wyoming. I mean, Wyoming, we just got a new one, but Idaho, a few of these other states, they're all super red states. We don't have real hardcore right wingers in their states. Meanwhile, the Dems from the deepest blue states, you'll get the Kamala Harris, you'll get all these other loonies. But AOC, our states,
AOC's district, what is that? PVI D plus 20.
Something,
Tlaib is Conyers' old seat.
Yeah,
that's like another D plus whatever. Ilhan Omar is a similar situation.
They don't miss it.
These are all deep blue seats, right? That you get these leftists. Jamal Bowman, the guy who took out Engel, right? So.
Who I think used to be a Republican.
We need to take the same approach, right? We need to go after the seats where let's go and beat them to the right. right? Let's
Agreed.
actually
Agreed. Because we've always just thought as long as they're from the right party, we don't look at the internal caucus. That's almost
right.
what matters more. It's the
Yeah.
caucus within the party, within the Senate, within the House that really influences things way more, because otherwise you're just going to get a Democrat light, and we're just wasting our political capital because we're having states that are super safe and we don't have people there that are willing to put up a fight. It's a real shame. It's really, really a
Right.
shame. But I wanted to talk to you too about some local stuff about Staten Island before we go. You were at Max pub in Staten Island today, which is the local restaurant here in New York City that's fighting against Cuomo and De Blasio and the ridiculous lockdown orders and trying to survive and stay as a business. What's going on down there? They opened up a church. All these crazy things?
So let me tell you how genius and how patriotic Staten Islanders are. The owners at Max Public House with John Tobacco.
Love John.
They love the great guys, great patriots. They set up an autonomous zone on on Lincoln Avenue in Staten Island, over by Grant City, around the corner from the great Grant City Tavern, the most MAGA
Good
bar
people there. Good
in
people
all of
there.
Staten Island. Great people there.
Massive Trump flag, and they love us.
Oh,
We
it's
love
fabulous. They have like a giant Trump mural like inside. It's great. Like
Yeah.
it's just yeah. So they set up an autonomous zone. I'm like, well, what's going? Well, first of all, no indoor dining, right? So and there's Lincoln Avenue is like a tiny one-way street. You can't really set up too much outdoor dining, and it's bar food. Max Public House is a bar. Nobody's
Right.
gonna go, like nobody
Going there for like a
goes.
nice 5-course meal.
Yeah. Nobody's there to do that, right? So nobody's gonna call Max for takeout, right?
Right,
And so that's not really their business model. So obviously the place has to be closed. But in order to at least try to help keep the place alive, there is a church that the guys over there set up, literally like practically overnight, and it allows them to have a congregation there of
No pun intended.
yeah, no pun intended, and allows them to peaceably assemble there, and so basically they're finding innovative ways
Loopholes.
to get people in. Hey, let me ask you something. Is it really like morally corrupt to like spin up a church overnight for your freedom? I don't know. I think it's a very interesting proposition, especially if you have a state that's coming after your ability to worship. If you have to find
It's
creative
what God
ways,
would want. It's what Jesus would want.
I think so.
Protect your
Right?
livelihoods, protect your families.
Right. Protect your livelihood. Protect your way of life. Right. Protect your culture and do what needs to be done. I think it's a very harmless way in America, because America is beautiful and amazing. You can spin up a church like pretty quickly, like overnight.
It is true.
Know?
It is true. You could become a reverend. You can form the House of Vish or whatever it may be, and worship your chosen deities, and then you can
wait a minute. This is genius. This is genius.
Yes.
I think the club should help people open up churches all around.
I think we should start.
Just like give them a guideline.
I think we should will be a church, and they can't stop us going into the church. They can't stop us from eating inside the church. They can't stop us from drinking the sacred wine inside the church. It's part of the traditions. And the SCOTUS actually did something good for once, and they ruled against King Nipple Rings on that and stopped his overreach. So church service is back on, and screw it, we're all churches now.
It's the ultimate this is the ultimate tactical miscalculation by the left. Like they want to like destroy our culture and everything, and they mess up by like now our tactic is we're gonna make everything culture, like everything's a church now, right? Like You know, it's like
You have to win by
that's
trolling. You got to troll them back, and you got to make a mockery of their insanity, because
Yes.
otherwise they're just gonna keep trotting along and destroying everything that's beautiful, like you said about this great country. And it's a sad state of affairs. But God bless Staten Island. You know, it's probably one of the most Republican areas in the country. I think people tend to forget about it because, you know, it's in New York City, but it's probably just as red as Alabama or some other big deep red state. I mean, and not only is it as red as these
like
other red states,
82% of Republicans or 83% of Republicans in Staten Island voted for Donald Trump. It's like the highest concentration in one county in America,
yeah,
or something
it's
like that.
insane. I mean, he gets tons of support there, and it's not only just that it's a red area; it's a red area in a blue city, so they're fighters. So it's not just like these other Republicans in other parts of the country who just get to rest on their laurels and everything's fine because they're from wherever and everything's fine, just great and dandy where they are. Staten Island, you got to fight and you got to push back because you're up against the city, you're up against the state, you're up against the machine, and that's what they're doing at Max Pub, and it's a beautiful site. So I'm glad you were able to give us an update. But with that, Vish, I need to probably call this podcast to a close, but I want to give you the last word. Please let our viewers know where they can stay in touch with the real Vish Burra.
Thanks for having me on, Gavin. You can find me at on Twitter at Vish Burra, Parler at Vish Burra, Instagram _Vish Burra, Facebook. You can try to friend me. I got the 5,000 friend cap though because I'm so popular. Facebook,
putting the caps just like Cuomo. You got to get rid of these caps. Just let the people live.
Yeah, I know exactly. So you can find me on these platforms. So thanks for having me, and love the After Hours show. I'd like to do it again.
Yeah, no, we'll make this a recurring after hours theme. We had some crazy amount of comments in here that were coming in. And I just want to remind everyone that we are available on iTunes, Spotify, Google, every major podcast distribution. Please leave us a like, comment, review on the Waxcast podcast on iTunes. And you can check out our website, waxcastpodcast.com. Stay tuned. We're going to have a busy end of year with a ton of special guests coming on and tons of great content soon to come. So stay tuned for more.